So now we'll talk about some of the common conditions and general conditions for CRCF. We'll move on to the application process and the review schedule. So indirect costs are permitted, and that is program specific. So you'll note it in your guidelines. For commercialization, SBIR and STTR, the cap for indirect costs is 10% of the CRCF award amount. So not any total. For instance, if it's commercialization, it's not the total of your match, and your CRCF award is specifically the $50,000 or whatever amount you seek from CRCF. But you will notice that applications that request direct costs only are reviewed more favorably, and there is an evaluation criteria that addresses the percent of indirects that are requested. For all, if it is a multi-party agreement and an IP agreement is needed, we require that that be in place within 60 days of your award letter. And they do need to be in place before any funding is dispersed. We want to make sure that you as the award recipient are protected, that what you envision for your IP agreement at the outset is in fact what transpires once your project is underway and completed. And that relates to also that the IP agreements must be durable. You see a couple of other bullets about stem cells and that CRCF awards are not considered state general funds. I think those are not issues for our applicants today. If you do have any questions about them, please let us know afterwards. Our application is an online process. I believe that everybody who's on the phone today has a link to your application. And if you do not, or you have any questions or concerns, let us know. And I should say everyone who's on today and has been advanced in the process. I know there are some folks who are listening for the purposes of information only. We, of course, have gone past the letter of intent process, and the next step is the application. You will see a lot of information online, including FAQs, pre-recorded webinars, and our December live webinar. So if you have any questions, I certainly encourage you to look at that information. We will also post today's webinar. There are certain parts of the application that require templates. The proposal section and the budget narrative both require templates, and they will both be saved and submitted in this. Actually, the proposal is a Word doc. It's submitted as a PDF. The budget and budget narrative are in Excel, and those are submitted in Excel. The appendix and other upload fields do not have a template. So we'll move on to the review process now. It's actually a 4-step review process. We perform an internal compliance and quality control review here at CIT, after which proposals will move on to subject matter experts. And those folks do a careful review and ranking of the proposals. They recommend whether they should advance to being fully funded, to be partially funded, to be resubmitted with modifications, or not to advance. And based on those recommendations and our assessment, the proposals then move on to the 3rd step, which is a 10-member body we'll talk about in just a moment, the Research and Technology Investment Advisory Committee. That group reviews the proposals, they convene, and they make award recommendations to our board. The Innovation and Entrepreneurship Investment Authority, our board, has actually delegated it to the CIT board, and the CIT board makes the final award decisions. So we'll look at the RTAC. It was established in legislation in 2011, and it has 10 members which you see on this slide. So they represent academia, our research universities in particular, the economic development community through the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, an engineering firm, a research facility, a large technology company, and then the venture capital community. 9 of the 10 members are in place, and one from the venture capital community is to be named. Our prior member who was in place and whose name you may recall from last year, Bobby Ocampo, stepped down. And I will mention that you see an asterisk by UVA. Tom Skalak has served on this, on the RTAC for the past year plus. The UVA president, Terry Sullivan, was just appointed to the CIT and IEA boards. A person or an organization may not serve on both the RTAC and the IEIA and CIT boards, and so we will see a shift in Tom's membership very shortly, probably in February. So that is the conclusion of our prepared remarks based on the slides. We at CIT have a number of programs that support the CRCF community, whether you're in academia or whether you're in the private sector. And if you have any questions whatsoever about the programs, we would encourage you to look at our website and also get in touch with us. Now, we'll take any questions that you all have, and we'll wait for just a couple of minutes to see whether you have any, and we'll address them now. If you have any later, we'll ask that you email crcf@cit.org, and we have a team of folks that will respond quickly to your questions. We do have a question. Can we get a copy of the presentation? We will post it either later today or tomorrow, and that will be at this same link that you see on the slide now on our CRCF landing page. Thank you for asking this question. Under the Matching Funds Program, can an institution of higher education use state funds to meet the matching requirement? In fact, no entity under any program can use state funds to serve as a match. So I do appreciate your mentioning that. Yes, salaries. Salaries, for instance, can be a source of matching, but state contracts or grants may not. Let's see. What are the historical win rates for submissions to the CRCF programs? Those have varied by program, and we only have about a 1-year track record. We had 2 solicitations last time. So we can't really give you a win rate with, I think, the kind of track record that NIH or other federal agencies might be able to provide you. Here's a question under matching funds. Do all of the matching funds have to be earmarked for commercialization, or just the 100K max? The matching funds, I'm not sure if I understand completely. They certainly need to be targeted to the project. So I think I'm going to ask that you either add to that question or you email us separately. Can you tell us how many proposals have been invited to this solicitation? Somewhere on the order of 140. What are generally acceptable and not as acceptable expenses for the commercialization program budget? Well, you'll see some of that outlined in the guidelines and also in the budget on the basis of the budget categories that you see are available to you. So, for instance, salary and fringe, subcontractors or consultants if you need those, materials or supplies. There may be travel specifically associated with the budget. There is a budget narrative section that calls out justification for those expenses. So I think if you feel that they are acceptable and advance or are required for your success in completing the project, and those budget categories, and they fit within a budget category, then they should be acceptable. There is a webinar specifically on the budget and budget narrative, and that may be another useful source. In the FAQs, we also have some information about expenses and matching funds. Here's a question: what is the cap for the matching funds program? That is 30%, and you'll find that also in your guidelines. If we match CRCF's 100K with 200K of our money, does all of our 200K have to be earmarked for commercialization, or just 100K? The answer to that is 100K. Your 100K match is required. If you are contributing additional funds and it will be for some other purpose, please spell out what that purpose is. I think it would be received very favorably if it's advancing your company in some fashion or another, or perhaps something that's related but not project specific. It will still be looked at favorably that you're contributing even more than the required 1-to-1. In the matching funds program, can funds be used for subcontractors? Yes, they may be used for subcontractors or consultants, and in fact, you'll see that in all of the budgets that are online, they are permitted. We do ask that you call out, and you'll see in the guidelines the kind of detail that's expected in the budget narrative that is justification and provides an understanding to all of the reviewers of how and why those monies are going to be spent. If you have a large portion of your work that is going to be subcontracted out, and if it is going to be subcontracted out of state, we think those are additional, they will merit additional explanation. And certainly if it's out of state, the justification for why you need to go to an out-of-state subcontractor rather than someone in state. We know that there may not be folks in state who can provide the support you need. It simply needs to be explained. Could you clarify the use of state funds a little further? Since salary and fringe are state funds, what about expenses such as supply costs, travel, etc. that are state funds? I take it that this may be from a university, and if the university is providing this as part of your package, that is acceptable. Indirects also from a university are acceptable as a match. The state funds that are not acceptable is if you have received a contract or a grant and you want to apply that as a match. So if we go back to the use of state funds, I think a lot of it depends on what the source of those funds are. So if it's and forgive me because I think I'm not being articulate here, but if it is your institution that is providing that support to you, for instance, or to your department, that would be acceptable. If I, in my garbled way, have not explained it, please get in touch with us separately afterwards. How many awards do you expect to make for the matching funds program specifically, and how many have been invited to apply? We do not have a specific allocation from within that $4.8 million, and I don't have the number now for how many have been invited to apply. So I think that also relates to what was the historical win rate and what might the win rate be. During the review process, based on the SMEs, the RTAC, the CIT board, decisions are made based on where the Commonwealth believes the best investments are made for growth, for commercialization, and the kind of outcomes that you saw articulated in the guidelines. So I think we have covered all of the questions. And if we have not, please email us at crcf@cit.org. So thank you again for joining the program today and for participating in the CRCF program. We look forward to your submissions in a couple of weeks' time.